Howdy, folks. Greyhawk 4x4 coming at you again, your resident vintage gamer. And it is time to do a catch up on our D&D campaign video. Um, I have not, I haven't done a video in a little while because of a lot of real life stuff, obviously, that's going on. And because of the protesting and being kind of consumed with digesting what was going on in the world and dealing with a lot of stuff work related and COVID related and all that. It's been a little overwhelming to the point to where I haven't felt like doing a video, so I didn't. That's the luxury of when you have a channel, is you can do videos when you wish, as opposed to if you end up doing this full time, then you do it as your revenue source, and it's more of a job. I'm not at that point yet. I still have a very much full-time job that I have to deal with. So I do videos when I feel like it. And today, finally, feels like there's some breathing room, and now we can do a video. So on the note of the Black Lives Matter protests and that whole topic, it's a very wide range of things to talk about there. I have decided that I will throw it out there for you guys. If you guys have any interest in me doing a video about my take on all of that, I think that my take has a unique aspect based upon my life experiences. So, but this is a gaming channel, and so if you guys want me to do something like that, I will. Separate video. I'll look down below at the comments and so forth, and just see how you guys feel about it. I have zero problem in giving all of my opinions on it and so forth, but this is a gaming channel, so today we're going to talk about gaming. So, where we left off talking about our D&D campaign that we're doing on Roll20 still because of COVID, and we're not really sure exactly when we might get back to being here in the tavern, tabletop, in person. We're not sure yet. We've got one of the people in the group that wants to travel to see his parents who are elderly sometime in July, so we're thinking about holding off until after that, just so that he can feel as at ease as possible about having, as minimal exposure before going to see his elderly parents. So that seems logical. So that'll probably be what, kind of the time frame we're looking at. So in the meantime, we're on Roll20, and where we left off, if you remember, we were in town, and we had decided to storm this suspected necromancer's tower, who's right in the middle of town. And of course, he's a very influential person in the town, as a matter of fact. But the rumors are just continually reinforcing the idea that this guy is, one, evil, and two, some type of necromancer, magic user, conjurer, alchemist, something like that. So, and then of course, our teammates' mother had disappeared, and it was believed that the necromancer Stratha Iola, whose tower it was behind it. And so we had assaulted the tower, and in the process of it, we had made it down to the basement. We found all of these evil, demonic type creatures in cells, in jail cells type of thing, including a particularly very nasty looking one behind a gold door with a floor covered in blood. And as the cleric, I had decided, hey, if you guys are deciding to release these things, because it appeared that this particularly evil one had been communicating with our magic user, saying something about, if you let me out, I will take care of Strotha Iola. I will kill him, and so forth. And it looked like our magic user wanted to do that. And I excused myself as the cleric and said, I can't be any part of that, because if this thing goes on a killing spree and wipes out the town, I certainly, not for just myself, for my character's sake, but for the church of which I'm a cleric of, for the reputation wise, we can't be seen as being part of something where we release evil upon the world. So I take off and go to the church to get more clerics and so forth and report it and try and come back with backup to deal with this the proper way. And that's where we started up a couple of sessions ago. And I successfully go, I get the local leader of the church, his attention. He brings clerics. We come back. City guard comes along as well. Word gets to them what's going on. Excuse me. A little bit of dry throat there. Pardon me. So we get back, and in the meantime, they had released, our group had released this evil wraith type incorporeal, whatever it was, and it had gone upstairs. There was a whole commotion. It had returned, and apparently Strotha Iola, it had dispatched Strotha Iola. It came back, and now there were two of them. So it was an assumption that it had not only killed Strotha Iola, but it turned him into one of these things, and now there are two. And then they disappeared. Now that's all happening while I'm gone. My character's gone. I come back. The group had done that and then ascended in the tower and found the room where our magic user's mother was found to have been sacrificed as a human sacrifice. She's dead on an altar, bled out, and apparently that was her blood that had gone down into the cell below. And of course, as I get there, he's carrying her down, and I'm trying to tell him I'll take her to Brother Dolomite, who is the high-ranking cleric, who's higher level. Maybe he can raise her or something like that. And the magic, so we get into a whole thing of intense role-playing at this point, because he is role-playing as a bereaved son who is carrying his dead mother after seeing all of this unspeakable horror in this tower and everything. I'm trying to be the logical, level-headed one who's saying we can deal with this problem. We need to work the problem. Let me have your mother. I will get her to Brother Dolomite. We'll see what we can do. And in the role playing, he's grief-stricken and basically doesn't want to let her go, and I'm telling him that time is important and so forth. And it gets to the point where the guard have to take him away, the magic user. This is all role played between he and I, and done very well. As added incredible flavor to the game. So he's taken away and everything. We get her to the temple to try and do raise dead, etc. At some point in there, amongst all of that, I think it was before he brought her downstairs or something like that, I was showing all the other clerics, all of these other creatures that were in these cells, and they were, holy shit, this is a lot of evil to deal with. And they were working on figuring out how they were going to banish them and etc. Luckily, they were inside jail cells, which was awesome because they were contained and they could deal with it. So they dealt with that issue we're dealing with the mother, getting her there. The magic user's been taken away just to kind of keep him away so that he doesn't interfere. And he goes, at some point he gets his father, they come to the temple, and the question is, do you want her raised? Do you want to speak to her? What do you want us to do? And bottom line is that the dad says, I will pay for you to cast Speak with Dead, because obviously there's a gold component to this. And they do, and turns out she does not want to be raised. She wants to be left at peace, which I thought was kind of a cool way for the DM to go with it. So she is not brought back. She ends up being laid to rest the whole bit, and that kind of puts closure to that. So much so that the magic user was very, very content with the outcome. So that kind of dealt with that chapter of the story. However, the bigger plot idea here is that Stratha Iola was only one of what we know as a council of 6 evil entities or beings or whatever that, through intelligence that we've gathered, are supporting a cult called, like, an end of the world cult, who is basically trying to summon evil creatures to this plane of existence, to this world, to try and take over the world. So there's this bigger plot thing going on. We've dealt with Stratha Iola is gone now. That leaves 5. We know one other name. All we have is a list of initials from a letter that we intercepted, signed with a bunch of initials. And one of them was SI for Stratha Iola. We know who another one is. We were able to identify another one. And then but there's 5 still that we have to deal with, but we know the identity of 2. One has been dispatched, one has not. So we have to, number 1, identify the remaining 4 and then deal with the other 5. So that's the bigger campaign plot thing, is the Council of 6. So that takes care of all of that. It was decided after that conclusion of all that we had heard that there was an outlying keep where we had met some settlers that were going to try and settle a new town, and word has gotten back that something has happened to them. So we decide to travel that way and investigate, which we do. We get out there, and of course there's rumors about weird creatures taking people out in the woods, and that these people have disappeared and so forth. So we go to investigate it. Bottom line is, we find a compound that's kind of subterranean, and it's filled with minotaurs and mind flayers. The mind flayers do not discriminate on who they kill inside here, because they've already killed some minotaurs. We find dead minotaurs and so forth, but we end up having to fight through the minotaurs. Then we get to the mind flayers. Holy shit. This is when shit got real. Anybody that's dealt with mind flayers knows the deal. The mind attacks, the tentacles, the sucking out your brains, the whole thing. Bottom line is, we end up defeating a couple of them, I believe, if I remember correctly. One of them might have disappeared and poofed. But not before our druid had his brains sucked out and was killed by one of the mind flayers. So then at that point we decide we got to get him back, see if we can deal with him, raise him, something, resurrect him, whatever. We get him back, take him to the druids. It is decided that he is going to be brought back in a different form. And he comes back in eagle form, as an eagle. So now we have a druid who can shapeshift and is an eagle. A badass, big-ass eagle. So that was actually worked out okay. I mean, other than the whole him dying part, that kind of sucked. But I mean, the outcome actually worked out okay. So That ended up so I think since the last time I did a video, there's been 3 sessions. So that ends up the last 2 ended Stratha Iola chapter, and then moved on to this thing with the Minotaurs and the Mind Flayers. We get back to the keep, and this particular last night's session, we had 2 players, the couple that are married. They had to go to a wedding, so they couldn't play last night. So we were down to, and then another one of our other players, the one that plays the magic user, he couldn't play, so we were down 3 players. So it was we were very short-handed last night. We decided to play anyway. So because we knew we were too short-handed to go back to the Mind Flayer Minotaur thing. My character, in the meantime, has been building a abbey, a stronghold abbey. It's basically a halfway house between a couple of cities with a church to Alcerian, which is my deity. And my idea was to build this thing for travelers and anybody else as a safe haven going between the two. And of course, because I'm a cleric, there's a church on site as well, which is the predominant building, and we would be able to proselytize to anybody that's coming in. But there's a tavern and a guardhouse, a bunkhouse, barracks, whatever you want to call it, and a church. And the idea is people would come in there to seek refuge or whatever, and then we'll see if they're interested in Alcerian. So that's under construction, and I've already given the money up for it. And but word has gotten back that there are some accounting discrepancies being reported. So last night we decided, shorthanded as we were, we would travel to my abbey to investigate these discrepancies. And we get there, and everything seems to be on the surface going normal. That construction is going as it should, but there's a number of clerics there, of course. But the other thing is there's a unique looking individual who doesn't quite fit in with everything, and the clerk who's in charge of the construction, I questioned him. I said, "Who's this guy?" And he's, "Oh yeah, he's like the foreman. He's kind of like overseeing everything." And the DM had basically given this guy, I forget his name, Silvio. He had basically, the DM had taken characters from The Sopranos, and this guy Silvio was one of the in charge kind of guy he's basically ingratiated himself in. The head clerk is very naive and doesn't understand what's going on, and this guy's basically running a racket with my construction project. And he's talking about, oh yeah, there's overages, and you know how it goes, and that type of bullshit. And so our thief in the party, I basically take him aside and I say, "Hey, what do you think? Do you think you could look into this a little bit and see if these guys are are they part of the Thieves Guild that you were part of? Are they, which would be, quote, organized and what's the other word I want to use here? Sanctioned, so to speak? Or are these guys just freelance, bandits or some shit?" And so he starts questioning him and everything. Sylvia, and then he finds, as he's looking through the whole construction project, he finds other guys kind of hanging out by the fences and so forth that kind of look like this Silvio character. And it turns out that yes, that's exactly, they're basically fleecing my construction project. And we have another clerk who comes over and says, "Hey, let me take you aside." He says, this clerk that's in charge here, he's so naive, he doesn't realize these guys are stealing you blind. At night, they're taking wagons of stuff out of here and probably selling it, or who knows what they're doing with it, but it's leaving. And bottom line is, we find that there is a secret door. They've placed secret doors in the outer walls that they can take stuff out at night through there, supposedly unseen. And we confront them. Our druid is back there, and he confronts one of them who pulls a dagger on him. And he was in human form. Our druid was in human form, so he decides he asked the DM, "Is it possible for me to shapeshift into an eagle and fly up on the roof?" And he has a swarm of bees spell and cast swarm of bees on this guy. And the DM's like, "Yeah, you can do that." And so that's exactly what he does. He poofs into an eagle, goes up on the roof, and swarms this guy with a bunch of bees. It's a pretty cool move. And so bottom line is we all find out about it. Two of them take off. Silvio and one of the other shitheads take off through one of the secret doors and run back. And it turns out they have a camp set up down the road where they've been taking the stolen stuff out of my keep, out of my abbey, and taking it there. And then somebody else, because we end up interrogating a couple of these shitheads, somebody else is coming and picking it up from their camp and taking it. Polly, as in Polly Walnuts. If you watch The Sopranos, that guy's name is Polly. That's coming and taking the stuff from the camp and taking it wherever he takes it. So it's basically, a grifting operation. But they're doing it to me and the Church of Alcerian, because they're technically stealing from the church. So we see that at their camp they have a bunch of mercenaries and stuff. We were very short-handed. So where we left it was we had barricaded ourselves in the abbey and decided we're going to stop there until we have our full crew decide if we're going to go after them, or because we're worried they may try and siege the abbey. And we put our defenses up, and that's where we stopped. So that kind of gets you guys up to speed on what's going on. So we got this thing going on. We got the Mind Flare issue and the Minotaur's keep or stronghold or whatever the hell that is, a bunker or whatever you want to call it. And then we got the bigger picture of the Council of Six and the End of the World cult, who that cult, I believe they serve the evil god Jubilix. And so as you can see how the DM is masterfully, intertwining all this stuff together, and it's fantastic. So anyway, you guys are caught up now on the I'm sorry. I skipped over one important thing. At some point, when we brought back Bregalag, which is our druid, when we brought him back to have him resurrected, and he ended up being brought back as an eagle, we were in a town, and there were dwarves there, and the dwarves identified our assassin that's in our group by a different name. They were calling him a different name, and they started saying, "This guy's not who you think he is," telling me that and everything. And I rolled I think it was a wisdom check or something like that, because I had already had suspicions about this character, because there was a mysterious figure that had shown up and collected an item that Cal, the assassin, had collected, and he gave it to him, to this evil-looking guy or whatever. So I already had my suspicions of his loyalties and whether or not he was evil, etc. And now the dwarves have kind of outed him. At that point, I cast Detect Lie on Cal and questioned him. And bottom line is he is denying everything. And I if I remember correctly, because that particular night I was drinking a lot of rum, so my memory might be a little iffy on that one. But I do believe I ended up saying, well, if you want to convince me that you're not serving evil, because through the whole Stratha Iola thing, and I have converted to lawful good. I was lawful neutral, and now I've gone completely lawful good. My character's alignment has changed to lawful good. So, in keeping with that, I said, if you want to convince me, you need to swear an oath to me that you're going to serve good for good purposes. And he wouldn't do it, if I remember correctly. And I walked out, and we left it there. And so that was the time before last. And then last night, that player didn't play. Cal's player was one of the ones that wasn't there. So we still have to resolve that. We still have to resolve how we're going to reconcile him being an evil character and me being a lawful good cleric. when we play again on this coming up Friday. So I had almost forgotten about that little extra bit of tension, of conflict there. That's happening as well. So now I can say that you guys are all caught up, because that's pretty much what's going on in the campaign. Things at my work, hopefully, depending upon how COVID's going, things might calm down a little bit. I might be able to get back into a regular routine where I can do my videos like every other day or so. That would be fantastic. I would love to do that. And then, again, if you've made it this far, please put your thoughts down below as to whether or not you would like me to do a separate video about the protests, Black Lives Matter, the whole topic. So, with that being said, guys, we'll catch you on the flip side.